In 2021, Bo Nix had just finished his third year at Auburn, and after that season ended, he entered the transfer portal. And in his 3 years at Auburn, he was very, very disappointing. He came in as a five-star recruit and had lived up to no expectations whatsoever. He was being labeled as a disappointment, a bust, and an NFL quarterback was the farthest thing from anyone's minds at that time. But now you cut 3 years later, and not only is Bo Nix a starting NFL quarterback, he's also leading the Broncos on arguably the most impressive turnaround this season, and he's a lock for offensive rookie. Well, not a lock, but he's the favorite to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. No one saw this coming. Just in case you want to know how unlikely it was that Bo Nix was to make the NFL at this time, I remember on the morning of Super Bowl 56, which would have been February 13th, 2022, a local church had invited my high school football team for that morning to go to church and all that, and they had a special guest there, and that was Bo Nix. Bo Nix was a special guest, and I remember thinking, well, it's cool to see him talk and all, but he's not going to make the NFL or whatever. But I mean, hey, it's so cool. It's an SEC quarterback. He got sick anyway and he couldn't go, so it was his dad instead. But that was the mindset at the time. I had no idea that Bo Nix would be an NFL player. I just thought he was going to be, well, he wasn't going to make the NFL, but in my mind at the time, it was cool to see an SEC quarterback. Anyway, how did Bo Nix go from a recruitment bust and looking like he never make an NFL roster to now being an NFL first round pick and a possible winner for Offensive Rookie of the Year and leading the Broncos possibly to their first playoff berth in 9 years? Like I said, Bo Nix was a very highly touted recruit coming out of high school, and he went to Auburn and he would start there right away. And in his first ever game on primetime television, the game of the week, he would lead Auburn to an upset victory over Oregon on a game-winning drive. And it's kind of funny that his first game came against Oregon knowing everything that happened in his career. Now, this game was very shaky for Bo Nix. You look at the completion percentage, the QBR, the interceptions, and even the passing yards and the average, it's not the best. It's very, not great. But, I mean, hey, 2 touchdowns and he had a game-winning drive against a very good Oregon team. That's enough to be bright about the future. And not only that, it's his first game. He's going to learn from those mistakes. So it's very easy to be happy about what Bo Nix did. Overall, Auburn was pretty good in 2019. They finished with a 9-3 record and were ranked in the top 25 every single week of the season, and this included a marquee victory over their rivals Alabama in the Iron Bowl, 48-45. I remember watching this game, and it was a phenomenal game. Honestly, the most underrated Iron Bowl of all time. It really doesn't get talked about. And not only did Alabama lose this game, but it completely knocked them out of not just the playoff conversation, but the entire New Year's Six bowl slate entirely. However, they would lose to a good Minnesota team in the Outback Bowl 31-24, and that would end off Bo Nix' stats for his freshman season with 2,500 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. And that's not the greatest. It's honestly mediocre, but I mean, hey, it's his freshman year. He's going to have time to improve, and he's under a very good coach in Gus Malzahn. I mean, it should be good from here on out, right? Well, those next 2 seasons at Auburn, Bo Nix really didn't show much improvement at all. In fact, I would actually say he regressed, and along with him, the team also regressed as well. As in the COVID-shortened season of 2020, Auburn would go 6-3, not bad, but then they would get blown out by Northwestern in the Citrus Bowl to make them go 6-4. Then the next season, Bo Nix would be injured some, and the whole entire team was just really bad, and they'd go 6-7. They lost to Alabama in a very heartbreaking game in the Iron Bowl, and then they would lose to Houston in the Birmingham Bowl to finish 6-7 and have their first losing season since 2012. It was not looking good for Auburn or Bo Nix. After the 2021 season ended, Bo Nix would enter the transfer portal, and on December 19th, 2021, he announced he'd be transferring to Oregon, and during this time, it really wasn't looking good for Bo Nix, at least with the labels, as he was seen as a recruiting bust and he was seen as a disappointment. I mean, he spent 3 years under a somewhat good system in the SEC, and he really didn't really show signs of improvement. So what could he bring to Oregon? We really didn't know. It was not looking good for Bo Nix. Well, hey, we'll see. And in Bo Nix's first game as an Oregon Duck, it was already off to a terrible start, and he was living up to all those labels he had at Auburn, as Oregon would lose to Georgia 49-3 in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and this loss was so bad that it'd take Oregon from the number 11 team in the nation to completely out of the top 25, and it looked like the cycle was continuing as Bo Nix had another terrible game with just a 57 passer rating and 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. But Bo Nix is about to prove a lot of people wrong. After that game, Oregon and Bo Nix would completely turn their season around as Oregon would finish 10-3 and beat UNC in the Holiday Bowl, and Bo Nix easily had the best season of his career, throwing for 3,500 yards, 29 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. A great improvement, and he was staying for 2023, so maybe things should be even better for Oregon and Bo Nix. Yeah, things weren't just better, they were miles better, as Bo Nix easily had the best season of his career. Not only that, he was one of the best players in college football this year, as he threw for 4,500 yards, 45 touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions, as he finished third in Heisman voting for this season, and he led Oregon to win an 11-2 record and a spot to the Fiesta Bowl. This was such an insane improvement, because just 2 years ago, this guy was seen as a bust and a disappointment, and now, 2 years later, he has completely revived his career. Not just that, but he has turned himself into one of the best college football players in the world. I mean, it's only in America, so the nation. However, this season will be remembered for one thing and one thing only, and that's the fact that they lost to Washington twice, once in the regular season and then in the Pac-12 championship, as they were very close to winning both games. And if they win just the Pac-12 championship, they're in the college football playoff, and who knows, they might have made a run to win the whole thing. It's really sad to look at, but I mean, hey, if I'm an Oregon fan, I'd still be proud. And with how things are going this season, 2024, I would be even more happy, I guess. I don't know, man, I'm yapping. It's okay, though, because they would destroy Liberty in the Fiesta Bowl, and really this shouldn't even have been a matchup anyway, but I mean, hey, it is what it is. After the 2023 season, Bo Nix would declare for the 2024 NFL Draft, and even though his stock rose a lot after those last 2 seasons with Oregon, people were still skeptical, as he was pretty old for a rookie. I think he was like 23, 24 years old. Not only that, he wasn't uber talented like Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Drake May, the top 3 quarterbacks of that draft. So he'd go anywhere from the first round or maybe even the middle of the draft. In the draft, though, he'd go 12 overall to the Denver Broncos, and at the time, my initial reaction was I thought it was a reach. I didn't think Bo Nix was going to be a bad NFL player, but I didn't think he was worth the 12th overall pick, and I didn't think he should be the guy you should center your franchise around, especially with him being old and everything, well, and rookie standards. Now, something Bo Nix did have going for him was that he'd be under the lead of Sean Payton, and if you don't really know anything about Sean Payton, he helped develop Drew Brees from an abandoned quarterback from San Diego into one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history. So, if Sean Payton could do that with Drew Brees, what could he do with Bo Nix? The potential was, I won't say off the charts, but it was pretty high. But the 2024 Broncos did not have a lot of expectations. They were seen as a rebuilding team and were projected to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. And those first 2 games the Broncos had kind of proved that point. They went 0-2, and Bo Nix did not perform well, as he threw 0 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. And it looked like, well, the Broncos were going to be pretty bad this year, but that was the lowest point the Broncos have had it all season long. That very next week after their Steelers game, they would play the Buccaneers, and they would shock the NFL world by upsetting them and blowing them out. And ever since then, the Broncos and Bo Nix have been on fire, as Bo Nix has led the Broncos to an 8-5 record and currently hold the 7th spot in the AFC playoff race. And not only that, but Bo Nix stats are also pretty good. 17 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and he's eclipsing, I think I said that right, eclipsing on 3,000 yards. He cooked it 4,000 by the end of the season, and it's between him and Brock Bowers to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. I feel like the career story for Bo Nix so far is really inspiring, and it really does not get talked about enough. I mean, his career looked completely dead, but he's been through ups and downs. He's been through the adversity, which none of these rookies have really went through in college. I mean, I know they did, but not like Bo Nix. And he's completely turned his career around from a bust to maybe an NFL starter for years to come. And I'm hoping for the best for him and the Broncos. I hope Bo Nix lasts long in the NFL, and hopefully maybe Sunday for him he can bring home a Lombardi trophy to Denver. But that's about it for the video, guys. Goodbye.